Today we're talking about one-to-ones, which we view as a critical component in the performance management package for anyone with management or high responsibility roles. Joining me today is William Roach. William is the CEO of S. Clyde Weaver. Now, Weaver's is a family-owned business currently in the hands of third and fourth generation family members, and they've been in business for over 100 years. And William is the first non-family CEO to lead the organization. So, William, why don't you take a moment and just tell us a little bit more about the organization that you lead, and maybe some of the challenges that you were facing at the point that you first opted to start one-to-ones with your direct reports.
Sure. So S. Clyde Weaver is a pretty large business. We have many departments. We have multiple entities. We oversee 11 different retail locations, food production, real estate management. We have all the major functions of a large business, from human resources to advertising, marketing, operations, and IT and wholesale sales. It was very complex, and I found myself in a position where I'm now overseeing multiple functions of a business that I did not have clear experience in, understanding of, and I was working with people that were well experienced and experts in their field.
So it was about a year ago when you started with the one-to-ones, and at the time maybe some challenges around communication, clarity, getting the offering the support and getting the performance that you wanted to see with your team. Is that a fair characterization of some of the challenges at the moment?
Yes, yeah. It was about a year ago. Rather than having the kind of ad hoc one-on-one, hey, I need help with this, or let me check in with this person, we decided to move forward with structured one-on-one meetings on a weekly basis, every week, same day of the week, same time for each individual direct report.
Okay. So let me talk a little bit about what's included in a one-to-one. And we, sometimes people talk about one-to-ones in very general terms, but we have a very specific structure to those one-to-ones. And every one-to-one has 4 components, and they're always done in this order. The first component is a goal review, where you're working with the individual to collaboratively establish goals. And the second component is tension points. So it's a question between the two of you. Do we have any tension points that we need to air? That keeps short accounts. And that's always the second component, because we want it dealt with early on, because you don't want to rip off a Band-Aid at the end of the meeting and then leave at that point. Mm-hmm. The third component is whatever issues your constituent or your subordinate has to talk to you about. And the final component is if you had something you need to talk to them about. So let's talk a little more about how you've used those 4 components, and we'll talk about a nice ad that you've enhanced the process with as well. So making the goals collaborative and having the person being the keeper of the goal, what did that look like for you? How did you approach that so that it was a collaborative effort?
Collaborative is the key word there, especially when you're talking to people that oversee a specific area of the business that they know more than I do. The last thing that they want to hear is for me to come in and give them a directive of go and do this, or this is your goal. So I sat down with each of my reports and I said, we want to establish a 6-month goal and a 12-month goal. Just kind of a shorter term and a more medium term goal, something that's the 6 months short term, very tangible, something that they can achieve. We can get it under our belt behind us and feel like we've accomplished something.
Quick win.
Yes.
Yeah.
The 12-month or 18-month goal was more of that medium term, higher level, something that's going to take some time to really implement. And so that became the start of our one-to-one sessions. Was always the focus. First and foremost, how are we going with the 6-month goal? And then we'd follow up with the 12 to 18-month goal. And then we get into the body of what they do on a daily or weekly basis.
Okay. Yeah. So it's customized for each person, and you're really tailoring it to the situation.
Yes.
Great. All right. And you've done properly, where we're going to hope and expect that the person that you're working with is going to feel supported in the process, that they're going to feel that there's clear enough direction. and would like to see that there's some decent accountability in the process as well. So talk a little bit about how that's been working for you, how you've achieved those things.
Sure. Let me talk first to the accountability piece, because that can come off somewhat difficult for some. But I found that it's actually really encouraging and creates movement with the staff. So the way that a great example that I have is one of my direct reports who was struggling with something. I sat down with him and I said, just simply, I don't feel that we've made as much progress as we should at this point. And he didn't take it negatively. He took it as energizing and really grabbed hold of his project. And within 3 months, we made more progress than we did in about 6 previously.
That's great. One of the fairly unique things we do is with this process is the individual's the keeper of the goals. It's not up to you to track the goals. It's not up to you to set the goals out there and say, how are you doing on this? Really, the individual themselves is keeping the goals. They're presenting the progress to you. So it has more of a feel of this is what I'm doing, which tends to have a more positive feel than the boss saying, what have you been up to, which can have a more of a negative feel.
Yes, rather than it being inquisitive from my part, it's a known reporting from their part, which I was somewhat surprised has come off very positive from the perspective of my reports. They are all very excited to meet with me on a weekly basis, which again, I was surprised about.
So let's talk about that tension points component. Can you give an example, not naming names or anything, but an example of how you work through a tension point area in one of your one-to-ones?
Sure. So when I go into the tension points with the direct reports, I always say that it's not just about the tension between me and them or them and me, but also between them and somebody else. It could be something as simple as I'm asking for this report from, Josh, and I'm not receiving it. Or I sent this email out and I didn't get the response. And often I find that the tension points build up. And then when they talk to me about it, it's something that's as simple as, well, have you talked with Josh?
In person, sure.
And it's really often a bit of communication, just a small piece of communication that solves a problem.
Good. Now, you've taken sort of the 4 components and you've enhanced that a little bit. You've added some additional questions to that. So talk a little bit about that, why you did it, and the impact of that.
Sure. So at the end of our meetings, I always say 15 minutes to have what I call the soft questions. This is not about a goal-specific reporting. This is about how are you doing and what can I do to help you? So I run through a number of questions, same questions every week. Everybody knows what's coming. We talk about the highs and lows for their week. I ask them if there's any clear objectives, clear obstacles that are in their way. What if there's one thing that I could do differently to help you more? What would that be? And then we finish it up with a rating of their work-life balance on a 1 to 10 scale. And the reason that I did that is to make it really feel that we're making a connection with each other on a personal basis, and it's not just work-driven.
Okay, good. Now, what would you say to the person, maybe a person in your shoes with another organization who would say, gosh, you're just taking 15 minutes for those last few questions. Maybe you're meeting a half hour, 45 minutes or an hour with these folks. What would you say to the person who says, boy, where do you find the time to do that? Or I'm just sort of catching people as catch can. Why would they invest that kind of time in a one-to-one process like this?
That's got a pretty involved answer. One, at first, I felt that I had that same mental struggle. Okay. How am I going to possibly schedule in an hour plus per employee? I've got 8 direct reports throughout the week on a weekly basis. And after really considering it, I figured out this is my job. My job is to be in communication and give consistent guidance where I can, and to receive updates on a regular basis from my reports on all the different functions of the business. So when I thought about the trade-off, it's like I'm trading off getting into the work of something to talk to my employee, my report. It should be the other way around, right? This has got to be my focus, is to provide good communication and guidance. The other piece that I found most interesting is that as I got into the goals of each of my reports, and I started to provide them the guidance and allow them to work on the projects, I realized that I was often way too involved with downstream work.
Beforehand, before doing one-to-ones, you were too involved in downstream work.
Yes.
Okay.
And with the adoption of the one-on-one format, I realized that I can step away from a lot of these small pieces that I was heavily impacting and let them do the work. It provided them some autonomy and some self-agency. It also freed up a lot of my time and energy to work on kind of looking at the business at a bigger scale.
Okay. Yeah, and you talk about sort of gaining some of that time and energy back. And what some people will tell us also is that just having the one-to-ones, when it can decrease the number of interruptions they get as well, because people sort of get the idea of once or twice when they come to you with something, say, hey, can this wait till our one-to-one on Tuesday, or is it urgent? People learn not to interrupt you with things that can wait till Tuesday. So many people find it helps them manage their time more efficiently.
Yeah, absolutely. I often have people come to me with like, oh, this is going on, but we'll talk about it on Thursday with our regular one-on-one.
Good. So what would you say has been the most meaningful impact, or what have you noticed as the strongest impact of doing one-to-ones for you or for your team, if you were kind of say, this is the real value we're gaining from it?
I feel that each of my reports has been far more productive.
Okay.
Because they're looking at each of the goals on their list as a project that they can cross off, something that they can achieve. As I mentioned a moment ago, it opened up time and energy for me. I was able to step out of the being in the business so that I could work on the business, and it's provided me a more opportunity to give general direction to each of my reports.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, William. I appreciate the time and sharing your experience with us today. And it's been great just walking alongside you in your journey of leadership here in these early phases, and just looking forward to continuing in that with you in the future.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Rob. I really appreciated the opportunity.